I'll be fairly brief. I'm a South African. During the apartheid era, we had decades and decades of national oppression, where black people were moved out of the urban area and deported to the rural area. They had no right to vote. They had no right to be in the urban area, and their citizenship was denied. And at that time, we thought that there was no worse oppression than you could believe than in South Africa. That the people who were indigenous, the people whose land it was, were denied their citizenship. And now we're about to have an election on Wednesday, and I think it's about the 4th election that we've had. And people have now got rid of the yoke of oppression. But what do we have? If I could just bring out some issues which are there in the struggle. First of all, there will be a chance, there will be an opportunity for everything to change. That's the first truth that there is in any bleak situation. There will be change. And the second point is that we have to be prepared and to have our eyes wide open. Now in South Africa, I was fortunate to be there as a young student at a time when we had mass strikes in the early 1970s. It was absolutely prohibited that people should strike. The police were there, the militias were there with machine guns. And everyone said, it's impossible. The exile movement said, it's impossible. You cannot have a movement there on the ground. And the workers marched through the city center. And what could they do? They're blacks and whites all mixed up in the city center. They can't open up with machine guns. And in fact, it would be totally counterproductive because there would be an absolute uprising. So the workers then won the right to strike by just doing it, not waiting for the law to change, doing it. So we've seen that opportunity, and the unions have grown, and now we've seen in South Africa the workers electing a representative of the National Liberation Movement, the African National Congress, to put in power to change everything. But there lies the second point. So the first point is the opportunity, and the opportunity of even acting decisively. On the other hand, when the situation changes, we have to have the theory, the understanding of what's taking place. Because what we've now seen is the apartheid state changed. We have a black government. We've got everything now has changed at the superficial level, at the higher level. But on the ground, we have 10 million unemployed. We've never had so many people unemployed. We find the schools are ruined. I had a phone call, I'm sorry to say, I had a phone call. It was a phone call from South Africa saying that there's rubbish throughout the center of the town. Why? Because the African National Congress wanted to put their favorites into places in working as municipal workers and double their salary as in South Africa say bonsela, as a special gift for them to make them vote the right way. And the workers went on strike, and the whole city now is pulverized. This is Durban, one of the biggest harbors in the southern hemisphere. Because when we fight for our liberation, when we fight for democracy, when we fight for jobs, and when we fight for socialism, we have to have our eyes wide open and our organization intact so that we ensure that we have control over our leadership, in other words, the right of recall, and that we make sure that that state, which previously was oppressing us, is our state, it's a workers' state, and we can radically transform, the country that we have. And the image I have is the huge oppression in Iran. We know Iranian workers in South Africa because in the 1960s and 70s they sent thousands of Iranian workers to South Africa to help start up our coal. It was gas from coal, in other words petrol from coal industry. And within weeks the Iranian workers were on strike in South Africa. And they showed that they were not employees being brought on privileged conditions. They were fighting for their rights, even though in South Africa they had no rights at all, right? And then we got an understanding of the depth of the workers' movement in Iran, and we learned to respect those people who were coming to South Africa to be trained in the petrochemical industry and so forth. So the point I want to make, and the challenge that exists to us, is that we need to understand that in the fight for democracy and the fight for transformation, where we compromise with capitalism, as has happened in South Africa, we end up completely distorting the state. Our state-owned enterprises are now run by all kinds of people we don't know. They are making deals with multinationals and things, and money is disappearing in the millions and the billions, and we don't even know what's happening. And we need to learn from each other on May Day to say, what is your experience? Tell us your experience so that we can learn from ours. Because the most beautiful speeches can be made about liberation, about full employment, about educating our children. And those people will go into the centers of power and they will double their salaries. They will then treble their salaries. They will buy the latest BMW and all the rest, and you've lost control of your leadership. So we need to study to understand the ideas which was put out in the Russian Revolution in 1905, that we will not have stages. We were told stage one is democracy. We will consolidate democracy. Everything will be beautiful. Then we will move on to socialism, where people can actually end poverty and everything will be utopia, the kind of thing you've dreamt of all your life. We have moved on to the stage of democracy. We've got a little bit into that, and then we find that we're back. We've lost so much ground. Our railways are not working. Our post office services are not working. Everything which the people want to their normal lives is being gone off to some privatization, to some billionaires are making money, and they're flying off to Abu Dhabi and having weddings there and lovely times, and we just know we haven't completed our revolution in any way which makes a difference to people's lives. So I just want to pass on those lessons. South Africa was like a movement of anti-slavery, the movement against apartheid. It was so disgusting, people would vomit to hear about what was happening, right? The same in Iran. People cannot bear to hear of the executions, of the oppression that has been, people on hunger strike and all the rest. We are fully in solidarity, but please learn the lessons of struggles in other countries. Read up about the theory from Marxism and about the transition from our oppressive situation under capitalism to something else, and make sure that that something else is a transition to socialism. Amandla! That is the cry for power, power to the Iranian working class.
Thank you. Wow, amazing, powerful speech. Thank you.